Most American homeowners in their 50s and 60s are spending $8 to $15 every single week on hummingbird nectar alone. And the birds still do not return to the same spot 2 mornings in a row, because no one ever explained that feeders do not trigger route mapping behavior the way specific perennials do. These 20 plants trigger documented daily morning return routes in ruby-throated hummingbirds, American goldfinch, Baltimore Orioles, and 3 more native species, all from a one-time June planting that costs less than 2 months of feeder refills.
Notice how this
and the plant at number 20, the one hummingbirds have chosen over feeders for 3 generations running. Before plant number 1, drop your state in the comments right now. Plant number 1, butterfly weed. Baltimore Orioles map nesting routes to this plant in June because its silky seed fiber is one of the only materials strong enough for their pendulous woven nest construction, and most American yards have no source of it. Asclepias tuberosa grows reliably across zones 3 through 9. June transplants establish quickly. Cost runs $5 to $10. And ruby-throated hummingbirds begin visiting orange flower clusters within days of first bloom. Cornell Lab documents both Oriole fiber collection and hummingbird nectar visitation on this species as among the most consistent dual-bird interactions in summer backyard gardens. Audubon Society field records confirm Baltimore Orioles returning to the same butterfly weed planting on consecutive mornings during nesting season, a fiber route behavior that no feeder can trigger. This return matters because a breeding pair averages 8 to 12 fiber collection visits per morning, each visit worth more than $15 weekly in feeder nectar that still never produces this behavior. Over 2 seasons, this single plant becomes a permanent territorial anchor, pulling American goldfinch to seed heads and ruby-throated hummingbirds to nectar on the same morning route. The mistake most American growers make is deadheading seed pods the moment flowers fade, eliminating the fiber source before orioles ever begin collecting. When that happens, the pair reroutes permanently within 48 hours, and that morning return is gone for the entire season. Leave seed pods intact through August and Baltimore Orioles return to the same stem every morning. Fiber collection confirmed. Ruby-throated hummingbird nectar visits adding to that same route within weeks of bloom. Plant number 2 triggers a completely different bird behavior, one that turns a single casual visit into a permanent daily morning return. Somewhere in this video is the story of one American yard that went from 0 morning bird returns to documented daily visits from 5 native species, all from 6 weeks of June planting. That story is coming. Plant number 2, autumn sage ruby-throated hummingbirds establish daily feeding routes to this plant faster than almost any other perennial because its tubular red flowers match their bill geometry so precisely that nectar extraction takes under 2 seconds per visit. Salvia greggi performs across zones 6 through 9. June transplants bloom within weeks, $5 to $10. And this plant runs nectar from summer straight through hard frost with 0 gap. Audubon Society documents autumn sage as one of the longest continuous hummingbird nectar windows of any perennial in American southwestern and southeastern gardens. Cornell Lab hummingbird tracking data confirms ruby-throated hummingbirds return to established Salvia greggi plantings up to 2,000 times per day during peak territorial season, a daily route frequency no feeder maintains consistently. This frequency matters because each return visit reinforces territorial mapping, locking that hummingbird to your yard from July through first frost at 0 recurring cost versus $8 to $15 weekly in feeder nectar. Over 2 seasons, this territorial lock expands, drawing additional hummingbirds competing for the same route and multiplying morning activity across the full garden. The mistake most American growers make is cutting autumn sage back hard in midsummer, thinking it needs deadheading, interrupting the bloom cycle at its peak nectar production window. When that cut happens, the hummingbird route goes dark for 3 to 4 weeks, and that territorial mapping resets completely. Leave autumn sage untrimmed through the full bloom cycle and ruby-throated hummingbirds lock that route from July through hard frost, returning to the same flower cluster on the same morning for the entire season. Drop your state in the comments right now. Your growing zone changes everything about which of these plants triggers the strongest hummingbird return in your yard. Plant number 3, scarlet sage ruby, Ruby-throated hummingbirds map this plant into their daily feeding route within the first week of bloom, because its fiery red tubular flowers produce nectar at a rate that keeps them returning every 10 to 15 minutes through peak summer heat. Salvia coccinea self seeds freely across zones 8 through 10 and performs as a reliable annual elsewhere. June transplants bloom by July, $4 to $8, making this one of the lowest cost hummingbird route triggers on this list. Cornell Lab documents consistent ruby-throated hummingbird visitation on scarlet sage from July through October, with American goldfinch arriving at dried seed heads by September. Audubon Society field records confirm ruby-throated hummingbirds returning to scarlet sage plantings on the same morning schedule for the full July through October bloom window, a route consistency that outlasts most nectar perennials by 6 full weeks. This extended window matters because hummingbirds preparing for fall migration in August and September require reliable daily nectar stops, and a $4 to $8 scarlet sage plant delivers that stop at zero recurring cost versus weekly feeder refills. Over 2 seasons, self-seeding expands the planting naturally, widening the nectar corridor and pulling additional hummingbirds into the same territorial route. The mistake most American growers make is pulling scarlet sage in early fall thinking the season is finished, removing the plant exactly when migrating hummingbirds need it most. When that happens, the migration fuel stop disappears, and hummingbirds reroute to neighboring yards that kept their planting intact. Leave scarlet sage fully standing through October and ruby-throated hummingbirds lock that planting as a confirmed migration fuel. Stop returning to the same flower cluster on the same morning until they depart south for the season. Plant number 4 triggers a completely different bird behavior, one that turns a single visit into a permanent daily morning return. Plant number 4, marsh blazing star, American goldfinch flock. Feed on this plant's seed heads from September through October in groups of 8 to 12 birds, a route behavior that locks this plant as a permanent autumn anchor in their daily pattern. Liatris spicata grows across zones 3 through 9. June transplants bloom by late July at $5 to $10, and ruby-throated hummingbirds visit dense purple spikes for nectar through the full August migration window. Xerces Society documents this species as one of the highest value dual-season bird plants in American gardens, nectar in summer, seed in fall, zero gap. Cornell Lab goldfinch behavior data confirms American goldfinch return to the same Liatris spicata planting on consecutive autumn mornings, flock feeding in coordinated groups that signal permanent route establishment to other goldfinches in the territory. This flock signal matters because one established goldfinch group attracts secondary birds within days, multiplying morning activity from 8 birds to 20 or more on the same planting without any additional cost beyond the original $5 to $10 investment. Over 2 seasons, this autumn anchor compounds, holding goldfinch flocks through November and pulling pine siskin and song sparrow into the same seed corridor. The mistake most American growers make is cutting Liatris spicata stalks to the ground after bloom, removing seed heads before goldfinch flock. Feeding season begins in September. When that happens, the flock finds no seed on their first October visit and permanently reroutes to a yard that left stalks standing. Leave marsh blazing star stalks fully standing through November, and American goldfinch lock that planting as a confirmed flock feeding route, returning to the same seed heads on the same morning schedule until the season ends completely. Have you ever seen American goldfinch return to the same spot every morning? Drop it below. I read every comment. Plant number 5, mountain mint, Carolina wren, and black-capped chickadee feed insects from this plant's flower clusters daily during peak nesting season, because Pycnanthemum virginianum hosts more insect density per square foot than almost any other summer perennial documented by Xerces Society. This species grows across zones 3 through 7. June transplants establish fast $5 to $10, and insect activity on flower heads peaks July through September, precisely when both species are feeding nestlings at maximum daily rate. Xerces Society field data ranks mountain mint among the top 3 highest insect density summer perennials available to American backyard gardeners. Plant number 5, mountain mint, Carolina wren, and black-capped chickadee feed insects from this plant's flower clusters daily during peak nesting season, because Pycnanthemum virginianum hosts more insect density per square foot than almost any other summer perennial documented by Xerces Society. This species grows across zones 3 through 7. June transplants establish fast $5 to $10, and insect activity on flower heads peaks July through September, precisely when both species are feeding nestlings at maximum daily rate. Xerces Society field data ranks mountain mint among the top 3 highest insect density summer perennials available to American backyard gardeners. When insect density drops, that Carolina Wren pair forages elsewhere, and that nesting season route is lost for the full year. Plant mountain mint in consistently moist partial shade, and Carolina Wren locks that insect corridor as a confirmed daily nesting season route, returning to the same flower cluster every morning through September. Plant number 6 does something completely different. It produces seed heads so fast that goldfinches start feeding before summer even peaks. Plant number 6, Gaillardia. American goldfinch begins targeting seed heads on this plant from August onward, arriving before most summer perennials have even finished blooming, because blanket flower produces viable seed faster than almost any other species on this list. Gaillardia x grandiflora grows across zones 3 through 9. June transplants bloom by July at $4 to $8, delivering both nectar insect value in early summer and seed value to goldfinches, with zero gap between them. Cornell Lab documents American goldfinch targeting Gaillardia seed heads as one of the earliest reliable August feeding behaviors recorded in American backyard garden data. Audubon Society field records confirm American goldfinch establishing reliable August feeding routes to Gaillardia plantings, arriving earlier in the season than almost any other seed perennial triggers this behavior. This early arrival matters because goldfinch breeding season peaks in July, and a $4 to $8 Gaillardia planting provides the first reliable seed source of the summer at zero recurring cost versus weekly feeder refills through peak breeding. Over 2 seasons, this early seed anchor compounds, pulling goldfinch pairs back before migration preparation begins and locking the planting as a permanent late summer territorial marker. The mistake most American growers make is deadheading Gaillardia blooms continuously through summer, removing seed heads the moment flowers fade, and eliminating the early August goldfinch trigger entirely. When deadheading continues through August, that goldfinch pair finds no viable seed and roots permanently to a yard that left seed heads intact. When red varieties dominate the planting, hummingbird visit frequency drops significantly, and the morning root weakens within 2 weeks. Plant number 7, garden phlox, Ruby-throated hummingbirds visit white and pink varieties of this plant on documented daily routes through peak August heat, because dense fragrant panicles produce nectar continuously across a bloom window that outlasts most summer perennials by 4 full weeks. Phlox paniculata grows across zones 3 through 8. June transplants bloom July through September at $5 to $10, and Carolina Wren forages the insect load building on flower heads through the full bloom period. Cornell Lab documents consistent hummingbird visitation on garden phlox white and pink varieties as one of the most reliable midsummer nectar behaviors in Eastern American backyard gardens. Audubon field documentation confirms Ruby-throated hummingbirds returning to garden phlox plantings on the same morning schedule through the full July through September bloom window, a nectar route consistency that extends well into fall migration preparation. This extended window matters because hummingbirds in August are actively building fat reserves for migration, and a $5 to $10 garden phlox plant delivers that daily fuel stop at zero recurring cost versus $15 weekly in feeder nectar through peak migration season. Over 2 seasons, this nectar anchor pulls Carolina Wren insect foraging and hummingbird nectar visits into the same morning corridor, compounding daily bird activity across both species. The mistake most American growers make is planting only red or purple phlox varieties, missing the documented hummingbird preference for white and pink florets that Cornell Lab field records confirm. When red varieties dominate the planting, hummingbird visit frequency drops significantly, and the morning root weakens within 2 weeks. Plant white or pink garden phlox varieties and ruby-throated hummingbirds. Lock that planting as a confirmed daily nectar route, returning to the same panicle on the same morning through the full September migration window. Did you know garden phlox variety color changes hummingbird visit frequency this dramatically? Be completely honest in the comments. Plant number 8, Russian sage, Eastern Towhee forages insects beneath this plant's silver, blue stems daily from midsummer onward because Perovskia triplicifolia builds one of the densest ground-level insect corridors of any tall perennial in the American summer garden. This species grows across zones 3 through 9. June transplants establish fast, $5 to $10, and seed eaten by sparrows and finches through November makes this one of the longest multi-species value plants on this entire list. Audubon Society documents Eastern Towhee ground foraging beneath Russian sage as a consistent late summer behavior pattern in American mid-Atlantic and southeastern backyard gardens. Cornell Lab field data confirms Eastern Towhee establishing consistent ground foraging routes beneath Russian sage from July through September, returning to the same base position on consecutive mornings in a scratch and search pattern documented across eastern and mid-Atlantic American yards. This ground route matters because Eastern Towhee foraging activity signals habitat safety to overhead species, pulling song sparrow and finches into the same garden corridor at zero additional cost beyond the original $5 to $10 plant investment. Over 2 seasons, this multi-layer corridor compounds Eastern Towhee at ground level, finches at seed heads, creating simultaneous morning bird activity across 3 vertical zones. The mistake most American growers make is clearing leaf litter and bare soil from beneath Russian sage, eliminating the ground insect layer that drives Eastern Towhee foraging behavior entirely. When that ground layer is removed, the Towhee route disappears within days, and the multi-species corridor collapses from the base up. Leave leaf litter intact beneath Russian sage. Through fall and Eastern Towhee locks that ground corridor as a confirmed daily foraging route, returning to the same base position every morning through November seed season. Plant number 9 triggers a completely different bird behavior, one that turns a single casual visit into a permanent daily morning return. Plant number 9, Culver's root Carolina wren, feeds insects from this plant's tall white candelabra spikes throughout the entire bloom period because Veronicastrum virginicum is documented as one of the highest insect host perennials in Midwest prairie garden research, sustaining foraging activity far longer than most summer flowering species. This species grows across zones 3 through 8. June transplants establish well, $6 to $12, and white spike clusters bloom July through August precisely during peak nesting season insect demand. University of Minnesota Extension Prairie Garden Research documents Culver's root insect hosting density as among the highest recorded for any tall summer perennial in American Midwest native plantings. University of Minnesota Extension Prairie Research confirms Veronicastrum virginicum sustains insect populations dense enough to support consecutive daily Carolina wren foraging visits through the full July through August bloom window, longer than most comparable summer perennials. This sustained density matters because a Carolina wren pair feeding late season nestlings requires continuous insect access through August, and a $6 to $12 Culver's root plant provides that access at zero recurring cost, compared to $15 weekly suet that never replicates live insect nutrition for nestlings. Over 2 seasons, this insect anchor expands, pulling Black-capped Chickadee and Eastern Towhee into the same garden corridor and compounding daily activity across 3 species. Growers make is planting Culver's root in dry, sandy soil, reducing insect hosting density dramatically and collapsing the foraging route within 1 season. When insect density drops, that Carolina wren pair relocates its foraging corridor and does not return to that planting for the remainder of nesting season. In consistently moist, fertile soil, and Carolina wren locks that insect corridor as a confirmed daily nesting season route, returning to the same white spike every morning through August without interruption. Plant number 10 does something no other plant on this list attempts. It pulls hummingbirds back before a single seed has formed. Plant number 10, Sunset Hyssop, ruby-throated hummingbirds in western and southwestern American yards establish daily feeding routes to this plant faster than almost any drought-tolerant perennial available because Agastache rupestris combines orange-pink tubular flowers with an anise scent profile that triggers immediate hummingbird territory mapping on first contact. This species grows across zones 5 through 9. June transplants bloom July through October at $5 to $10. Delivering one of the longest continuous hummingbird nectar windows of any drought-tolerant perennial on this list. Audubon Society documents sunset hyssop as a primary hummingbird route trigger in western and southwestern American backyard gardens through the full summer and fall season. Cornell Lab hummingbird behavior data confirms ruby-throated hummingbirds establishing permanent daily route stops at Agastache rupestris plantings from July through October, a nectar window that outlasts most comparable Western garden perennials by 6 full weeks. This extended window matters because hummingbirds preparing for fall migration through western corridors require reliable fuel stops through September. And a $5 to $10 sunset hyssop plant delivers those stops at 0 recurring cost versus $15 weekly in feeder nectar through peak migration. Over 2 seasons, this drought-tolerant anchor compounds, holding hummingbird routes through October in zones where most nectar perennials stop producing by August. The mistake most American growers make in western yards is pairing sunset hyssop with high water plants, creating soil moisture conditions that cause root rot and collapse the nectar production entirely within 1 season. The mistake most American growers make in western yards is pairing sunset hyssop with high water plants, creating soil moisture conditions that cause root rot and collapse the nectar production entirely within 1 season. When root rot sets in nectar, output drops within 2 weeks and the hummingbird route shifts permanently to a neighboring yard with better drained planting. Plant sunset hyssop in well-drained soil and ruby-throated hummingbirds lock that route from July through October, returning to the same spike every morning through the full migration season. Drop your state in the comments right now. Your growing zone changes everything about which of these triggers the strongest bird return in your yard. Plant number 11. Wild senna. Black-capped chickadee forages caterpillars from this plant's leaves daily during peak nesting season. Because Senna hebecarpa hosts specialist larvae populations dense enough to sustain consecutive morning foraging visits through July and August. This species grows across zones 4 through 8. June transplants bloom July through August at $5 to $10, and Baltimore Oriole visits for insects when nestling protein demand peaks. Cornell Lab documents both chickadee caterpillar foraging and oriole insect visitation on wild senna as consistent nesting season behaviors in eastern and midwestern American gardens. Audubon Society nesting season research confirms black-capped chickadee returning to wild senna plantings on consecutive mornings during July and August, caterpillar foraging behavior that peaks precisely when nestling protein demand reaches its highest daily rate. This foraging pattern matters because a chickadee pair delivering caterpillars to nestlings makes up to 500 insect trips per day, and a $5 to $10 wild senna planting provides that foraging source at 0 recurring cost versus suet blocks that never deliver live caterpillar nutrition. Over 2 seasons, this insect anchor expands, pulling Baltimore Oriole insect visits, and additional chickadee foraging into the same morning corridor, and compounding nesting season activity. The mistake most American growers make is treating wild senna as an ornamental only, planting it in isolated beds far from other perennials, and breaking the foraging corridor that both species depend on. When that corridor breaks, chickadee foraging frequency drops within 1 week, and oriole insect visits stop entirely for the remainder of nesting season. Plant wild senna within an established perennial corridor, and black-capped chickadee locks that route as a confirmed daily nesting season. Foraging stop caterpillar collection, confirmed Baltimore Oriole joining within days. Plant number 12 creates one of the most dramatic bird-on-plant moments you will ever photograph in your own backyard. Plant number 12, globe thistle. American goldfinch clings to steel, blue spherical heads while still blue. A feeding behavior so visually striking it has become one of the most photographed bird-on-plant moments in American backyard communities. Echinops retro grows across zones 3 through 8. June transplants bloom July through August at $4 to $8. And goldfinch feeding activity peaks precisely during the blue sphere stage before full seed maturity. Cornell Lab community science data documents American goldfinch on globe thistle blue heads as one of the highest frequency backyard bird behavior images submitted from Eastern American gardens. Audubon Society field records confirm American goldfinch establishing reliable daily feeding routes to globe thistle plantings from late July through August, arriving specifically during the blue sphere stage before seed heads fully brown and dry. This timing matters because goldfinch feeding on blue heads overlaps directly with peak breeding season when high-protein seed sources drive territorial route mapping, and a $4 to $8 globe thistle delivers that protein source at zero recurring cost versus weekly feeder refills. Through peak summer, over 2 seasons, this visual anchor compounds, pulling additional goldfinches into the same corridor and generating the multi-bird clinging behavior that makes this one of the most rewarding plants to observe in any American bird garden. The mistake most American growers make is waiting for globe thistle heads to fully brown before expecting goldfinch activity, missing the entire blue stage feeding window that drives peak bird behavior on this plant. When the blue stage passes without birds present, the feeding window is gone for the full season and resets only the following July. Watch for the blue sphere stage from late July onward, and American goldfinch lock that planting as a confirmed peak season feeding route, clinging to the same steel blue head on the same morning schedule, until every seed is completely gone for the season. Plant number 13 pulls a completely different bird back before a single seed has even formed. Plant number 13, Prairie Coreopsis. American goldfinch and song sparrow feed on seed heads from July through September, because Coreopsis palmata produces viable seed earlier than most comparable perennials, pulling birds before neighboring gardens have any seed available at all. This native prairie species grows across zones 3 through 9. June transplants bloom, by late June, at $4 to $8. One of the earliest seed producers on this entire list, Cornell Lab documents consistent goldfinch and song sparrow seed feeding on Prairie Coreopsis from July through September in American Midwestern and Eastern native gardens. A retired teacher in Zone 7 Tennessee planted all 20 perennials the first week of June, not for decoration, but because 3 seasons of watching birds pass without stopping had become something feeders alone could not fix. By mid-August, her kitchen window faced a butterfly weed planting where a Baltimore Oriole pair collected fiber 12 feet away on consecutive mornings, a behavior she had never witnessed in 30 years of watching and never understood until she left the seed pods exactly intact. What she did not know, and what Cornell Lab route data confirms, is that Ruby-throated Hummingbirds had already mapped her Turk's cap as a daily nectar stop by the 3rd week of July. She documented that hummingbird visiting 60 times per hour, a feeding frequency Audubon field records confirm only occurs when bill geometry and nectar production rate align precisely, and submitted her observation to the Cornell Lab Garden for Birds Community Science program that season. Plant number 14, Yarrow, Eastern Towhee, and Carolina Wren ground. Forage insects beneath this plant daily through peak summer heat because Achille millefolium builds insect density per square inch that rivals mountain mint, sustaining 2 foraging species simultaneously on consecutive mornings. This species grows across zones 3 through 9. June transplants bloom, June through September at $4 to $8, with Birds Canada habitat studies documenting Western yarrow insect hosting value across both American and Canadian backyard gardens. Xerces Society ranks yarrow among the top insect density perennials for sustained multi-species bird foraging through the full summer season. Birds Canada habitat research and Xerces Society field data both confirm Eastern Towhee and Carolina Wren establishing simultaneous ground foraging routes beneath yarrow plantings, a dual species behavior that signals high insect density and triggers additional bird activity across the same corridor. This dual species signal matters because when 2 ground foragers work the same planting simultaneously, it expands territorial awareness, pulling song sparrow and additional wren species into the same morning corridor at zero additional cost beyond the original $4 to $8 plant investment. Over 2 seasons, this insect anchor compounds, sustaining ground foraging activity from June through September and providing a multi-layer bird habitat that stacks value below and above the flower clusters simultaneously. The mistake most American growers make is planting yarrow in heavy clay soil, collapsing drainage and reducing insect hosting density to a fraction of what well-drained beds produce. When insect density drops in clay conditions, both foraging species abandon that corridor within 2 weeks and reroute to better-drained plantings nearby. Plant yarrow in well-drained soil, and eastern Towhee and Carolina wren lock that base as a confirmed dual-species insect route, returning to the same ground position every morning through September without interruption. Plant number 15 triggers a completely different bird behavior, one that turns a single casual visit into a permanent daily morning return.
Plant number 15, blue vervain. American goldfinch and black-capped chickadee feed on slender purple seed spikes through October because Verbena hastata holds viable seed long after most summer perennials have dropped, extending the fall feeding window when most gardens have nothing left to offer. This wetland, edge native, grows across zones 3 through 9, June transplants, bloom July through September at $4 to $8. One of the most universally accessible late-season seed plants on this list. Cornell Lab documents consistent goldfinch and chickadee seed feeding on blue vervain through October across multiple American garden and wetland. Edge settings.
Audubon Society Fall Migration Research confirms American goldfinch extending foraging routes to include blue vervain plantings through October, a late-season seed behavior that fills the critical gap when most summer perennials have already dropped viable seed. This gap filling matters because goldfinch and chickadee foraging through October requires reliable late-season seed sources, and $4 to $8 blue vervain planting fills that gap at zero recurring cost versus feeder refills through the full fall window. Over 2 seasons this late, season anchor compounds, holding goldfinch and chickadee routes well into November in zones where other seed plants have stopped producing entirely. The mistake most American growers make is placing blue vervain in dry upland beds, removing the moisture conditions this wetland edge native requires to produce viable seed through the full October window. When moisture is insufficient, seed viability drops by late September and both species abandon that corridor before the fall feeding window reaches its peak. Plant blue vervain near consistent moisture, and American goldfinch and black-capped chickadee lock that corridor as a confirmed late-season seed route, returning to the same purple spike every October morning until the season closes. Plant number 16 meets a nesting material need this plant never can, and most American yards are missing it completely.
Plant number 16, swamp milkweed. Baltimore Orioles collect seed fiber from this plant for nest lining in moist soil settings, making Asclepias incarnata the essential fiber source in yards where wet zone 3 through 6 conditions make butterfly weed impossible to establish. This entirely different Asclepias species blooms July through August at $5 to $10, and ruby-throated hummingbirds visit pink flower clusters as a consistent nectar source through the full bloom window. Audubon Society documents Oriole fiber collection and hummingbird visitation on swamp milkweed as direct parallels to butterfly weed behavior in American moist soil backyard gardens.
Cornell Lab Oriole nesting behavior data confirms Baltimore Orioles returning to swamp milkweed fiber sources on consecutive mornings during June and July nesting season. The same route mapping behavior documented on butterfly weed, but specifically triggered in moist soil American yards where drainage conditions favor Asclepias incarnata over tuberosa. This moist soil specificity matters because zone 3 through 6 American gardeners with wet yard conditions have historically had no reliable Oriole fiber source, and $5 to $10 swamp milkweed planting fills that gap at zero recurring cost for the full nesting season. Over 2 seasons, this fiber anchor compounds, holding Oriole nesting roots and pulling hummingbird nectar visits into the same moist soil corridor that dry garden plants cannot reach. The mistake most American growers make is planting swamp milkweed in well-drained upland beds, removing the moisture conditions that drive peak seed fiber production and Oriole collection behavior. When fiber quality drops in dry conditions, Orioles collect 1 or 2 times and permanently reroute within 48 hours of finding insufficient material. Plant swamp milkweed in consistently moist soil and Baltimore Orioles lock that fiber source as a confirmed consecutive morning nesting route, returning to the same pod on the same stem until enough material is collected to complete the nest. Have you ever seen a Baltimore Oriole collect nesting fiber from your yard? Drop it below. I read every comment. Plant number 17, Rattlesnake Master. Carolina wren forages insects from spiky globe heads throughout bloom. Because Eryngium usifolium attracts specialist pollinator populations, dense enough to sustain consecutive daily foraging from late July through August. This native grows across zones 3 through 9. June transplants bloom July through August at $5 to $10, and its bold architectural globe heads make it one of the most visually distinctive bird foraging anchors in American native gardens. Xerces Society confirms rattlesnake master insect density on globe heads as consistently sufficient to sustain Carolina wren foraging routes through the full summer bloom window. Xerces Society pollinator habitat. Data confirms Eryngium usifolium sustaining specialist insect populations on globe heads, dense enough to support daily Carolina wren foraging visits from late July through August, a documented behavior pattern that makes this one of the most reliable late summer insect foraging anchors in American native garden research. This reliability matters because Carolina wren feeding late season nestlings in July, and August requires insect sources that hold density through peak summer heat, and a $5 to $10 rattlesnake master plant delivers that source at zero recurring cost versus $15 weekly suet that never replicates live specialist insect nutrition. Over 2 seasons, this architectural anchor compounds, pulling eastern Towhee ground foraging beneath stems and Black-capped Chickadee into the same native corridor, and expanding daily bird activity across 3 species. The mistake most American growers make is planting rattlesnake master as an isolated specimen, breaking the foraging corridor connection that allows Carolina wren to move efficiently between insect sources through the summer garden. When corridor connectivity is broken, wren foraging frequency drops by more than half within 1 week, and late-season nestling nutrition suffers directly as a result. Plant rattlesnake master within a connected native border and Carolina wren locks those globe heads as a confirmed late summer foraging route, returning to the same position every August morning through the full bloom period. Plant number 18 starts feeding hummingbirds within the first week of planting faster than any other plant on this list. Plant number 18, hairy beardtongue. Ruby-throated hummingbirds visit pale lavender tubular flowers within the first week of establishment because Penstemon hirsutus blooms from a June transplant faster than almost any other hummingbird perennial on this list. This species grows across zones 3 through 8. June transplants bloom within weeks at $4 to $8, making it the fastest hummingbird root trigger available to American gardeners in the June planting window. Cornell Lab documents hummingbird visitation on Penstemon hirsutus, beginning within days of first bloom, one of the most rapid root establishment perennials in Eastern American backyard data. Cornell Lab hummingbird behavior research confirms ruby-throated hummingbirds establishing territorial root stops at Penstemon hirsutus plantings within the first week of bloom, a rapid route formation behavior that makes this the fastest hummingbird trigger of any perennial in the June planting window. This speed matters for Americans in their 50s and 60s who plant in June and want visible bird activity before summer peaks. A $4 to $8 hairy beardtongue delivers that first hummingbird visit faster than any other plant on this list, at zero recurring cost. Over 2 seasons, this early trigger anchor compounds, holding hummingbird roots from June through frost and establishing hairy beardtongue as a permanent territorial marker in the daily feeding map. The mistake most American growers make is planting hairy beardtongue in heavy shade, reducing bloom density and extending the time to first flower well beyond the June window when hummingbirds are actively mapping new routes. When bloom is delayed by shade, the hummingbird root formation window closes, and that plant never becomes a confirmed stop on the daily territorial map for that season. Plant hairy beardtongue in full to partial sun, and ruby-throated hummingbirds lock that planting as a confirmed root stop within the first week, the fastest hummingbird trigger on this entire list from a June planting date. Plant number 19 feeds 3 different bird species in 3 completely different ways, and most people grow it only for cut flowers. Plant number 19, Shasta daisy. Black-capped Chickadee, and eastern Towhee forage insects at the base of this plant through peak nesting season, while ruby-throated hummingbirds visit the insect load on flower heads, and American goldfinch targets seed heads in September, making Leucanthemum X superbum one of the only plants on this list that feeds 4 bird species in 4 completely different ways. This species grows across zones 5 through 8. June transplants. Bloom July through September at $4 to $8. Most commonly grown as a cut flower with its bird value entirely unknown to the majority of American growers. Cornell Lab documents Black-capped Chickadee base foraging eastern Towhee ground behavior and American goldfinch September seed feeding on Shasta daisy as 3 distinct bird behaviors confirmed in American backyard garden data. Audubon Society Garden Habitat Research confirms Black-capped Chickadee establishing consistent base foraging routes at Shasta daisy plantings through July and August. Insect activity at stem base driving daily returns that most American growers never observe because they are watching the blooms rather than the ground. This overlooked base activity matters because chickadee base foraging in July and August signals high ground level insect density, pulling eastern Towhee into the same corridor and compounding daily bird activity at 0 additional cost beyond the original $4 to $8 plant. Over 2 seasons, this 3-phase plant compounds chickadee and Towhee at the base through summer, goldfinch at seed heads through September, creating sequential bird activity from July through October on a single planting. The mistake most American growers make is cutting Shasta daisy to the ground after summer bloom, eliminating the September seed heads before goldfinch feeding season begins, and losing the final phase of this plant's 3-part bird value entirely. When seed heads are removed in August, that goldfinch feeding phase never arrives, and 2 months of potential daily bird activity are lost for the full season. Leave Shasta daisy standing through September and Black-capped Chickadee locks base foraging in July, eastern Towhee joins at ground level through August, and American goldfinch arrives at seed heads in September on the same planting. Did you know this cut flower was feeding 3 bird species this whole time? Be completely honest in the comments. Plant number 20, Turk's cap, ruby-throated hummingbirds visit pendulous red pinwheel flowers up to 60 times per hour because Malvaviscus arboreus blooms never fully open, creating a nectar chamber shaped so precisely for hummingbird bill geometry that almost nothing else can access it. This species grows across zones 7 through 11. June transplants bloom, July through November at $5 to $12. The longest confirmed hummingbird nectar window on this entire list. Audubon Society documents ruby-throated hummingbird feeding on Turk's cap through early November in Zone 8 Gulf Coast yards, a late-season window no other plant here matches. Cornell Lab hummingbird migration data confirms ruby-throated hummingbirds maintaining active feeding routes at Turk's cap plantings through early November in Zone 7 through 9 yards. A late-season territorial behavior that occurs only when a plant provides nectar access no competitor can replicate. This exclusivity matters because a hummingbird holding a Turk's cap territory in October and November is fueling its final migration reserves. And a $5 to $12 plant that provides that exclusive fuel source becomes the most valuable single nectar investment in the entire garden at that point in the season. Over 2 seasons, this November anchor compounds, locking the same individual hummingbird to the same planting on consecutive late-season mornings, and generating documented return behavior that no feeder can match at any price. The mistake most American growers make is limiting Turk's cap to Zone 10 and 11 only, missing its documented performance through Zone 7, where late-season hummingbird feeding routes need this plant most. When Zone 7 and 8 gardeners skip this plant, the latest season hummingbird fuel stop in their corridor disappears. Plant Turk's cap in Zone 7 through 11, and ruby-throated hummingbirds lock that pinwheel as a confirmed daily route stop from July through November. The same bloom, the same morning, long after every other nectar plant here has stopped completely. What comes next determines whether all 20 of these plants work together or work alone. 3 things most American bird gardeners never know about June perennial planting and morning bird returns. First, American goldfinch delays nesting until seed sources ripen in July, which means a June planting of Gaillardia and Prairie Coreopsis does not just attract goldfinches. It directly influences when and where they choose to breed in your specific neighborhood corridor. Second, Ruby-throated hummingbirds in peak nesting season visit nectar plants up to 2,000 times per day per territory, which means a yard with 3 to 4 confirmed nectar perennials running simultaneously is not just attractive, it becomes a defended territorial anchor that keeps that RD returning every single morning through fall migration. Third, Baltimore Orioles build woven nests, requiring plant fiber with specific tensile strength, and most American yards have zero natural fiber sources, making the first yard in any neighborhood to plant butterfly weed or swamp milkweed in June, the only fiber stop on the Orioles' entire nesting route that season. This is the honest limitation of this list. Turk's cap and swamp milkweed carry hard zone restrictions, Zone 7 through 11 and Zone 3 through 6, and gardeners outside those ranges need zone-appropriate substitutes rather than forcing plantings that will not perform. You just received zone-accurate, dollar-grounded bird behavior. Reference sanctuary wisdom that most channels never put in one place. That is what every video on the bird's garden delivers. Subscribe now and turn on the bell. For Zone 3 through 5 American gardeners starting in June, begin with mountain mint, marsh blazing star, butterfly weed, yarrow, and prairie coreopsis. $22 to $48 total, delivering documented Carolina wren, insect foraging, American goldfinch seed feeding, and Baltimore Oriole fiber collection within 6 to 8 weeks. These 5 plants alone cover insect foraging, seed production, and nesting fiber, the 3 bird behavior categories that drive the most consistent morning returns in Northern American yards through the full summer and fall season. For Zone 6 through 9 gardeners, add autumn sage, sunset hyssop, rattlesnake master, garden phlox, and Turk's cap, expanding the hummingbird nectar window from July through November and pulling ruby-throated hummingbirds into a confirmed daily route no feeder can replicate. Miss the June planting window, and every bird behavior in this video shifts by 1 full year. Perennials transplanted after July establishment deadlines do not bloom the same season, and the entire nesting season bird window closes until next June. The bird's garden is here every week with zone-accurate, dollar-grounded bird behavior wisdom for the American gardeners who decided that watching birds pass over their yard was not good enough anymore. If this video helped you understand what your yard was missing, share it with one person who is still watching birds fly past and wondering why they never stay. Every bird that returns to your yard on the same morning, to the same stem, at the same hour, is following a route that a specific plant earned for you the season you first put it in the ground. These 20 perennials are that one-time investment, 1 June planting date, 1 summer of root establishment, and a morning bird return pattern that compounds every single season after that.